everybody, or good afternoon, actually, today. So we're going to be finishing up what we failed to do last time. We got pretty close, but it was getting pretty late at night. But yeah, today we're finishing it. So we've got 2.5 row lags to spin. I've got a slightly different seat set up that I may need to adjust. We'll see. Doing my best here. I did wash and sort of inspect the first seat that we made. I really like it. I think it looks nice. I have a few things to post on Tumblr for some reason. Hopefully, I will figure that out eventually. Like stuck in the very first spot. Might fiddle with that slightly until people filter. I really wanted to be able to like point to my blog and be like, hey, it's on there, you can look at it. It's pretty. But that does not seem to be happening for some reason. Just try to listen to the post. That's annoying. Well, let me see if I can. Real quick. Nobody's quite filtered in yet. Okay. Maybe this time it'll post. You never know. That's the wrong way. I've spun so much cotton recently that I just like fully forgotten what direction anything is spun in. Hopefully I'll remember. Eventually. I'm really happy with how that first scheme turned out. It's a lot more green than I was daring to hope for. I thought it would be sort of bluish. And I don't wear a lot of blue, but I do love wearing green, so I think it might actually make a fantastic vest or something like that. It would be awesome. But in the meantime, we still gotta finish up. I thought that I had done enough row lags to fly with that first batch that I made, but clearly not. So I did 4 extra than what I thought I would need, and we'll see if that's enough. Ideally, I'd like to have a tiny bit left over where it's just a solid color, because I find that makes a really neat cast on edge. So I might even end up just like spinning a little bit more of this stuff specifically, and I guess I could chain fly it or something, and that'd probably function just the same. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I think it looks nice. I got a lot better than I thought it would. It's pretty nice. I apologize if my voice is a little bit off and monotone today. I did not have a good day at all, and this is what happens when I don't have a good day. I just sort of lose the ability to act convincingly like a human person. So yeah, what's going on with that? But hey, you know, tomorrow's another day. Can't possibly be as bad as this one. I hope. I am somewhat emboldened by the fact that I've got some pretty good dinner going. Got some rice and veggies and then some veggie stock going so that I can make again later. I've been out of seitan for a little while, and that is one of my staple foods. So it's like one of the few things I can eat that is super protein heavy. Probably pretty much all the other food. So, when I don't have it, I feel like utter crap and I can't really remember why. And then I have it again and I'm like, oh yeah, the body needs to get macronutrients. I forgot about that. It's always the damn macronutrients with me. It's like, what do you mean I need carbs? I just had 3 gallons of water. Things you should not say to a medical professional, by the way. They don't like it when you say that. Speak from experience. New chair setup is definitely a little bit more comfortable and sustainable, but I can tell that I am having a hell of a lot less twist than I usually do because I'm traveling really slow. And I'm traveling slow because my angle is different and it's just a lot harder to effectively travel at this angle. So I think we're going to put this on the smallest whorl. This often doesn't work for me. Not wrong. If you've watched a fair number of my streams, you might know that my wheel is kind of an expensive piece of garbage, unfortunately. And several of the very basic functions do not work, including half the time the small whorl wheel. But we'll give it a shot. Sometimes it works, and I think it'll help a lot with making this a bit more even. Yeah. We'll also have to get up briefly in about 10 minutes. So I can turn off my rice so it doesn't overcook like hell. I really need like a nice rice cooker. I don't know why, but I've ended up with the same like most bottom tier possible rice cooker twice in a row. I really fucking hate that thing. I mean, it cooks rice. I will say that. It makes it easier than putting it on the stove because you can just walk away. But other than that, many of the other functions, not so good. So I do kind of have to baby it, even though it's rice. That's okay. I restarted my lunch bag project. I accidentally stabbed several holes through my existing lunch bag that I appropriated from work after I cleaned out the employee fridge and put all the non-moldy stuff to the side and people tried to claim it. Nobody claimed it, so I was like, okay, it's fine now. Problem is, it's kind of terrible, and I've been bringing knives like just paring knives to work so I could cut up my avocados because they're on sale right now. And I love a good avocado. And I dropped the bag and the knife just like went straight through. So it's still mildly usable for now, but I clearly need a replacement that's a little bit more knife proof. And wool is a bit more knife proof for sure. So I had done this double crochet base, and then once the base was done, I went around it with half double crochet and started building walls up. But I think that was the wrong approach. What I've done this time is a half double crochet base, which is thicker. And then I'm probably still going to do a similar thing, but I think if I leave it all to half double crochet, I'll have a more insulating bag and I won't have to felt it. Because I don't trust my new washing machine with felting. So, yeah, I restarted it, but that's okay. I usually restart things like that multiple times. Those are how my brain works. Like, how do I know if it's working if I can't see what I'm getting? But then to see what you're getting, you do actually have to do it. I do kind of wish that I could play some music on stream or something like that, especially for these quieter times. And it's just me, myself, and that. I'm a little worried about the whole copyright infringement thing. But I probably have to look into what's without getting. I know most Mountain Goat songs are not super interested in getting people, but I don't know how many Mountain Goat songs I've memorized. I would just be singing them anyway. I don't know. Maybe one of these days I will give it a shot. I feel like that's got to be more of an issue when you've got like a larger following. Because like how many people are actually gonna find this stream who are looking for like unlicensed right? I can't remember very many. But yeah, maybe one of these days. I don't think I could really sing very well anyway at the moment. I am a professional trained singer. Who has definitely let myself go somewhat, but you know, but I have to pull up here. My guitar broke about 6 or 7 months ago, and I have not played a single thing or sung very much of anything since then. So definitely have to practice. I've been meaning to get it repaired. I did send it to a repair place. They had it for 3 weeks and did nothing. Because apparently they were waiting for something on back order. But the guy, when I went to like ask, the guy was like, "No, I don't know how long it will be. You want it back?" And basically just like tried to herd me out of the store as quickly as possible after wasting 2 weeks. But now I'm like, is there even a point? Because it was not easy to get the guitar there in the first place, given that I used a wheelchair. Yeah, not easy. It sort of like, Do I need music? The thing that fuels my soul? Soul. What's left? But yeah, point being, I'm very out of practice. So that's probably for the best for all of us. It does feel, having switched to the lowest floral, it feels like I'm getting something closer at least to the correct amount of fits in here. Because I'm still, I don't know why, it's just impossible to shuttle quite fast enough at the moment with this setup. So, um, you know, but it seems to be working. So, oh, hi, Tobias. You just whittled your first 2 spindles. You're surprised how well they work. Hey, that's awesome, man. I lost my string. That is awesome. I hope you enjoy them. And yeah, it's kind of crazy how imprecise they need to be. You know, like yeah. And then the more practice you get, the easier it is to just bang out a spindle that works really well in like 20 minutes, which is quite a fun skill to have for sure. Probably best. All right, on to the second roll lag. We got one more after this. Slowly getting there. You know, I was so pleased to be done with spinning these single colored singles, and now we're back at it. But that is okay. I think it's worth it for the extra yardage that we'll get. Given how thin this stuff is, I think it's a decent chance that like just doing this, I might be adding a good 100 yards or so, and that's definitely worth it to me. Hey Zertra, welcome in. You didn't miss too much. We're just getting started on spinning some of this. I don't know if you saw, but I did post a picture of how the yarn has turned out. I've dried it already. I haven't counted it, but I did dry it. I took a picture, and I think it's a lot better than I was hoping for, honestly. I'm really pleased. That is my rice cooker, so I'm going to have to get up and turn it off before it burns the hell out of all my rice. But it can wait a couple of minutes. How am I doing? You'll probably leave early because stuff tomorrow, but you wanted to hang out a bit. Well, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. I had a terrible day at work, but thankfully no longer at work, so at least it's that. How about you? How was your day? At least I'm here now. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. At least tomorrow is a Wednesday, which is somewhat easier for me because I have about an hour less of client-facing time. And let me tell you, it's the clients that are making it so bad. I've been on Tumblr so long that I keep accidentally saying Tumblrisms that have really not made their way into normal speech. So I was complaining pretty severely about some kind of fucked up shit that just happened. And I ended up with, but we stay silly. And my coworkers are just like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? So that was a moment. They are not wrong. Not the best. You're juggling exhaustion and bad paperwork stuff. Ugh, that's the worst. Watched an okay movie though. Well, that's something. Movies can be fun, even if they're not perfect. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've sort of lost the ability to like interact with other human beings in a meaningful way in most situations, and I'm just sort of at my limit in many ways. However, I am not at my limit when it comes to spinning yarn. So at least there's that. I do love to spin yarn. If I get too quiet or something, let me know. I keep getting mesmerized by the sound of this spinning wheel. And then I just get distracted. Hard to do when you keep losing your yarn now. You took your spindle on the bus and didn't dare use it. I'll do a bit of it now. Nice. Why are you afraid to use it out on the bus? Out of curiosity. No judgment, because I get it, but I'm just wondering. Oh, before I forget, I'm just gonna go turn off my rice. I'll be right back. Back. Sorry about that. You did it once, but you're trying to spin fine singles, so it keeps breaking, which didn't sound convenient on a moving bus. Fair point. Especially with a drop spindle where it's liable to very fair. Back to I just added a bunch of brown rice, like syrup or sugar or something, to my rice, which I've never tried before. I'm a little worried it might backfire. I'm also pretty sure that is one of the ingredients in my favorite rice sauce ever. So we'll have to see. But I'm excited. Yeah, it's. I've never seen it for sale before, but turns out there's a Asian supermarket super close by to where I live that I had never found. It's sort of hidden behind a bunch of other buildings. Um, but they have all sorts of super cool, super cheap things. That's where I got my 6 gallons of coconut water from, among other things. Really? Why do you hate me, Will? Bird actually does it. Yeah, I gotta go back there. The only problem is it's one of those, like on the bus, it's one of those takes 6 hours kind of deals. I don't have that kind of time even on weekends, so it's kind of hard to get there. But I always come late this weekend. One thing they sadly don't seem to sell though is fiber. I'd be so happy if they had like silk or something, silk cocoons. That'd make my day. But not something you expect at a supermarket, kind of thing. ever spun silk. Not pure silk. I've spun some silk blends, and I do have some pure silk. I think I mostly have hankies. And then I have a tiny amount of tussa, which I don't really have any interest in spinning pure. But I really should spin those silk hankies. It feels like it's going to take a lot of hand strength. That's kind of the thing with silk. I mean, it depends entirely on the put up. But if it's a hanky, as far as I can tell, you kind of have to stretch it out very, very, very thin. It looks like it would take some hanky. So yeah, I haven't delved as far into it as I wish I could have. He has a big thing with silk workers. I found lots of old books on the library, but not so much for individual guys. I wonder how much of that could be adapted just for a single homestead. I would love to raise silkworms. That would make me really happy. But I don't have the time for that. You wonder, there was an exhibition lately about silk dyes. You want to take notes on every single page. That's valid. Very understandable. I haven't seen very much at all about natural dyes, which is crazy because there are so many dye materials, native, invasive, or otherwise, that are pretty easy to find all over this city. And this is a very like DIY kind of city. So you think, but apparently not. I've had a couple of people ask me to teach natural dye classes, but it was like perfectly. I'm like, no, not perfect. But I'm not sure I would be great at teaching natural dyes, like even if it's being compensated. It's all so intuitive and unrelated to human words in my head that conveying it to a bunch of people who paid money to be there also sounds like a bad time. Bad rule. Almost done with this roll egg. Got one more. You have a bit of trouble catching the end of my sentences. That makes sense. I can't tell if I'm trailing off a little or if I'm turning my head. But I will pay attention to that and see if I can make it a little easier. Let me know if it improves or anything like that. Thanks for mentioning it. I'm definitely talking a bit quieter than I usually am. I'm trying to project as much as possible, but it's not easy. But I do also keep turning my head to look at things. And I know for a fact that does not help at all. So I'll try and stop doing that one. So I took out, I was dyeing the last of my white fleece, white wool fleece, as well as some various random like white-ish themes that I really wanted to overdye. And all I did was like briefly cook them in the dye pot, add a little bit of copper more than just the something was actually happening there. And then let them sit overnight and over a morning. And they're like, it's crazy how much faster they soaked up the dye material than the cotton did. Like 2 or 3 times faster minimum. I was a little shocked. But they're also a pretty decent color. I find that pretty much anything that is not white is going to be a success in my book because I hate spinning white so much and I have no use for white. I was pretty pleased with that. It's currently sitting in my bathroom sink. Unicorn power star just sort of chilling. Probably once I'm done with this stream, I'll give it another rinse and everything. But the pinkish stuff that I got, like from the cotton, is drying and it's looking pretty nice. It's sort of turning into a coral so far. It's gonna keep changing as it dries, I imagine. That's how it is with wool, and I think it would be the same with cotton for once. Yeah, pretty. There was so much like color left in the dye pot that I just could not tip it all down the drain. There was no way. Honestly, I think I could have gotten another 1 or 2 rounds out of it. I just didn't have anything to put in there anymore. I'm out of wool. I have like maybe 1 pound of unwashed temperature that I could use once I wash it. I just haven't yet. Maybe one day I'll wash it. And I finally, on the last rollback, I finally figured out a better tofu press system. So I am not watching the world's most pathetic tofu pressing going on for once. So that's also a massive win in my book. Yeah, it is good. Because last time, it was like 2 seconds away from falling into the sink. Like, not only was it a goddamn trapezoid, and it should have been a cube, but it was a trapezoid. Not only that, but it was about to fall into the sink, into a pot of dirty water, and I was so horrified. It probably had like 20 seconds before that was going to happen. There's something devastating about ruining food you cooked, I know. Yeah, for real. I feel so like guilty about it and angry at myself, and also half the time I still try and force myself to eat it because I feel like I have to, and it's like overall miserable. I feel like that's something that like rich people don't have to deal with because they can just buy more ingredients or whatever, or like get pizza or something. But when it's like, well, this is what I have for dinner, and that's it just sucks. But hopefully today's dinner will be a little bit better. Let's see. Something I really enjoy about no longer having roommates that they did not like having rice every single day. I don't know why. Probably something wrong with them. But I love having rice like all the time. And I can and will eat exclusively rice for like weeks on end. So I can finally actually make dinner that I want, that I can digest, instead of dinner that they want, that they can digest. Because I was the designated food cook, and they got mad at me. So, very pleased that's no longer the case. I love rice and I miss rice. So, I'm beloved. Yeah, same, from some sort of loyalty toward the food. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I put so much time into it. I feel like what happened was my fault, so I have to stick with it. Weird of them, you think? Yeah, the whole situation was kind of weird. And I don't think I was the only one getting screwed over. I think we were all screwing each other over in different ways. Just another reason I don't ever want to have roommates ever again. It's just too easy. That, and it was just like kind of soul crushing to buy a food that you were super looking forward to, hide it in the back of the fridge, and then somehow somebody's eating it in like 2 seconds anyway, and then have that repeatedly happen. I hate that. I'm so glad that doesn't happen anymore. And the worst thing is, I'm probably also guilty of doing that, and I doubt I even knew. I probably also didn't know. One of the things that will happen when you have roommates. Nobody will label anything for some reason, despite repeated requests to do so. Yeah, I see you have similar struggles. Condolences. We're almost done with this, and then it's fine. Very exciting. I just really desperately want to know the yardage. Once I know the yardage, I can get started on all sorts of other stuff. I'm looking for patterns that'll tell me the yardage. But until then, I just have to wait. You live alone now, so not so much lately. Fairly livable at times, but also you can cook what you want at 2 a.m. Yeah, I get that. It is so much harder to keep a place clean and pay bills and like work enough for rent for a one person situation, but it's also kind of worth it. At least, I mean, I'm sure it's worth it to some people and not to others. I find it to be. That does sound pretty rough. You have a fine yarn question? Go for it. I've learned how to reattach broken singles by felting them, but it's not really working on fine singles. Is that a me thing or a frequent issue? I think it might just be a technique issue. I personally have found that like it's possible to reattach fine yarns, but you have to go about it a little bit differently. So I'll break this and show you how I do it. Um, so are you first off? Are you talking like a break while you're spinning, or are you talking like you start winding and there's a break in there? Because that does change things. Spinning a tiny bit in the meantime while I wait. Both, but currently while you're spinning. Okay. So there's a couple things that play into fine yarn spinning that don't really matter so much with thicker yarn spinning. The first is when you snap a thick piece of singles, there's usually going to be quite a lot of just sort of fluff hanging off the end. And that fluff is a really good anchor that you can use to attach other stuff. Whereas a lot of the time, oh my God, sorry, I don't know if you could hear that or not, but it was a motorcycle so loud I couldn't hear my own thoughts. A lot of the time when you break a thin singles, there might just be a tiny wispy bit, or there might even not be like nothing. So the first step is to let out some twist. So I'm not going to let out all the twist that I've got, but I am going to let out as much of it as I can. Yarn is going to accept more fiber getting spun into it a lot easier if there's not very much twist. And then also, you might want to fluff up the edge a little bit to see what you can do to make it a little bit bigger so that there's more spots to catch. And then when you go to reattach your fiber, Cyril showed me this actually. It works for cotton, but it also works really well for wool. When you go to reattach your fiber, you want to make sure it's less twist than you're looking for. Like less twist than you would want it to have if everything was going smoothly, right? In my case, since I'm going on a wheel, I'm going to massively reduce tension. Um, in your case, if you're doing it on a spindle, maybe park it on your thigh and don't put it under the weight of the spindle because it's going to be weak for a little bit. So what I'm going to do is start adding a little bit of twist, and I'm holding my roll leg alongside. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's kind of going to, they're just going to meld together. And so here's what I've got. You actually cannot even see where the break was, but there was one in there. So that's the way that I would join breaks that have occurred while you are spinning. That's always going to be the easiest to fix because you can still add twist a lot easier and that sort of thing. Now, when it comes to fixing breaks in a yarn that, like, say you're trying to ply it and one of your fingers snaps, that's going to be a little different. You're going to have to felt it. In my case, I like to spit felt because I find it to be more effective. So I'm going to snap these two bits real quick. So I've got this end, which you can't see at all. This end, it's attached to my wheel. And then I've got this other end that I want to splice in. Basically just pretending that they've broke. So once again, you want to fluff out the edges a little. You might want to remove some twist. The more fluffy and like fiber-like rather than yarn-like it is, the easier of a time you will have. That's true of thick yarn, but it's even more true of thin yarn. So what you're going to do is overlap them once you've fluffed them up. And in my case, you don't have to do this. This is just what I do. In my case, I usually get a little bit of spit on my hand. You can use water if you're squeamish or if you're in public or anything like that. Many good reasons to use water, but spit is more effective. And all I'm doing is wetting this area, rolling it between my thumb and my forefinger, which have spit on it. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to lay it flat in my hand across my palm. Oh, I don't think you can see it. I'm going to lay my other palm across and just rub vigorously. This will felt it into place. It'll do a damn good job. If it comes apart again, it means you needed more water most of the time or more spit. And we'll see if this holds. Even if you think you're pretty confident, it's still best to try and go for lower tension. So for drop spindle, that means it's still best to not add any weight to it for a little bit. And you just go back to spinning, and there you go. So it's more difficult when it comes to thin fibers, but it's not impossible for sure. You snapped it, so you're trying it at the same time. Let me know how it works. I'm happy to demonstrate it again, and I can probably find some better yarn that would actually show up on camera. And another important thing to know is that there is pretty much an infinite number of ways to do everything related to spin. Everybody has their own thing. So if this doesn't work for you, there will be other ways that will. You do the spit thing too. Nice. Sometimes with water if you're in public, but more often you just wait until people are gone. I do the same thing. I'll like turn away from people so that they can't see me and then do it. I mean, it just works so much better. So, but yeah, let me know how that worked. It really is, fluffing up those ends really is going to help a ton, especially like if it snapped because you over twisted it or it snapped because it ran thin. In both those situations, you're going to have really terrible wispy ends to work with, and you might want to pull those off entirely and just sort of fluff up what you do have, you know? And if worst comes to worst, if it's just straight up not working, tie a knot. No one will notice. And when you're plying it, you can sort of finagle it so that the ends of the knot are not visible. So that's also always an option if you're really struggling. I still do that. And I've been spinning for, I don't know why I keep saying this because I have no idea what I've been spinning for. I've been spinning since I was a teenager, so I think it's been about 10 years. So it kind of worked, but the yarn also slipped, leaving a very thin thread. Maybe try overlapping it more. I don't know how much you overlapped it the first time. If it was 3 inches, try overlapping 6 inches, like that sort of thing. Maybe just double how much you overlapped. You winded it so that it becomes future use problem, but that's probably not ideal. I mean, it'll settle into place a little over time as well. I feel like that's a perfectly valid approach, to be honest. Maybe I'm biased because that's also sometimes my approach, but but yeah, maybe try next time overlapping it more. And you might also need a little bit more spit and to rub it a little bit more vigorously. Either of those might help as well. I think learning how to fix your spinning mistakes the same way as learning how to fix your knitting or crochet mistakes, it's a learning curve, you know? Like, you'll get better at it the more you do it. And your first couple of attempts probably won't be so good, but the more you try, the easier it'll get and the more complex mistakes you'll be able to fix. It'll almost become second nature. So definitely keep at it, you know, you'll get there. You'll get to a level where you're satisfied with what you're making, for sure. You checked what is 3 inches. You think that's the issue. You overlap way less. Yeah, not overlapping enough can definitely cause problems. So maybe try like 2 to 3 times more of an overlap than you think you can. Because the more you overlap, the more chances there are for the fiber to grab itself, which is exactly what you want. Yeah, no problem. Always happy to help, or if I don't know the answer, at least to discuss it a little. Because I won't always know the answer, but yeah, thanks for asking. Almost done. So excited. This is going to be kind of a pain to wrap. Just know it. Because I have to turn all of it into a two-ply. Although now that I think about it, maybe I shouldn't bracelet ply all this stuff. Maybe I just need to wind some of it onto something else. Because the end of it, I'm not going to want a two-ply. I'm going to want to chain ply it so that it's like a consistent width. So I don't know. I should have thought of that earlier. I think we are going to wind it. I think that's the easiest way. My e-spinner is sadly not that close by. Sorry, I snapped my own yarn to show me. Oh, don't worry about it. I've fixed it enough times that it's not a problem for me. So I was able to fix mine pretty quickly. It's just a practice thing, you know? And frankly, even when you already know how to do it, a little bit of extra practice never did anybody any harm. So don't worry about that at all. I guess I could make some of this into a ply bracelet and then leave some left over. That's what I'll do. It's so funny the contortions you put yourself in when you're trying to like ply something and you really know the yardage doesn't match up. Putting myself in all sorts of situations is kind of funny. Last little handful of this stuff. Your bits of strings box that you go to tie up skeins is almost exclusively left over from plies of yarn you absent-mindedly twisted by hand. That's a cool thing to do with your leftovers. I like that. Most of my leftovers I put in a bag and then card them later to turn them back into yarn, which is also fun. But I like that there's so many things you can do, you know. All right, we're done. We're done with the spinning. I hope. And now it's just onto the winding and the plying phase. So I'm gonna make, come on, I'm gonna make a ply bracelet out of a lot of this, but not all of it. Put this guy back on. What's going on here? Okay. All right. Is that how I get those roll eggs of all the colors? Yeah, it is. Yeah. The really nice thing, like, I guess the thing that makes it worthwhile to me is that it's really difficult to keep those colors distinct unless they have a tiny bit of twist in them. And when they do have a tiny bit of twist in them, like, which only happens if they're already yarn, you can get these really detailed, incredibly complex looking bits of yarn. It's really fun. I highly recommend. And also, even if you only have a little bit, mixing that with just some plain white wool will make some really fun confetti yarn. Many options. It's definitely a lot of fun. It is harder, like it requires more passes is the only thing. And there's some techniques to it, so like your first couple might not be super great. But the more that you do, the better they get, the easier they are to spin, and the more fun they are to make. So, yeah, if you ever want to try it, you totally should. Whenever I'm winding a ply bracelet, I always feel like I'm doing some sort of like magic. Like it's such a weird and specific series of hand movements that I kind of feel like I'm doing something like that. Spell of two ply my yarn. It does look witchcrafty. Yeah, it feels witchcrafty. Or like almost ritualistic or like a prayer. I could see any of those really. Every other time you go the wrong way too. Same for a nitty naughty, but you're getting better at this one. Yeah, it's all entirely muscle memory. Until you get that muscle memory, it's going to be a little rough. But once you do, you don't have to think about it ever again. So at least there's that. It is interesting to me how many random, somewhat adjacent skills you kind of end up required to come up with and to learn just for doing fibroids, simply because it has so many complex steps and so much going on, you know. I don't know, it's really interesting to me. Like, I set out learning how to spin yarn simply because I wanted better wool yarn than the batons that was available at the local Walmart. And now I know fiber prep, wool washing, natural dyeing, um, and then all of these other like spinning techniques and stuff like that. Multiple tools, how to make tools. Like, I really spiraled. That's all I can say. It's pretty funny to me. There was such a clear jump from normal guy with like normal hobbies. Like I was into hockey and running, and those were my two big things. And almost overnight, that turned into fibroids. It's just so fun. Like, what can you say? All right, I think we're gonna go to here, and I think that'll just about do. And then hopefully the rest of it I can chain ply. I don't know exactly how much I need, so it's really hard to estimate. But I can always two ply a bit more of the stuff still on the bobbin, so we'll see. You feel way deeper into fiber stuff than you expected. Same, yeah. It's just so much more fulfilling, like at least to me. I think this is why I'm drawn to it, is that it is so much more fulfilling than almost anything else I could be doing right now. Like, I could be watching YouTube videos, or I could be cleaning my apartment, or looking for a less horrible job, or like, you know, many things. I could be playing video games. But none of that is something that results in creation. And creating things is so fun. Wait, get back here. There we go. All right. I'm gonna spit felt these guys all together, I guess. Oh, cool. Okay. I don't even have to split splice them because it ended on a little loop, so I can just sort of that. I guess I could split splice for a bit of security. Not oddly. All right. This is definitely going to go slower because I find that I feel pretty limited, like in terms of speed when I'm working from a ply bracelet. I don't really know why, but it definitely feels like it slows me down. Okay, so it's this way. There we go. Don't be tangling. It's tangling. There we go. Tangling on. There we go. Also, and I don't know if this is just me, but when I do ply bracelets that are a little bit too tight, which does happen, it kind of pulls out my arm hair. And it really hurts. I don't know how to get around that other than like not having arm hair, I guess, but I'm just not that dedicated to shaving. A like sliver of my arm is what I would be shaving. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a bit slower. I guess I could wind this stuff off onto a ply ball, and ultimately that might actually be faster. Um, we'll see. If I'm still struggling after I've sort of opened up a little bit more space between my wrists, then I probably will do that. But until then, we'll go through a little bit. You have this thing where initially you're not good at craft stuff, not great with your hands or on spatial stuff. So you grew up thinking you were like only a head and not good for anything else. And it's been amazing to learn that I can do that too. More poorly than most people you think, but still. I mean, I get that. I was always the idiot in my family. So I grew up sort of being like, wow, I really am good for literally nothing. That's crazy. Um, and then, having skills that other people actually, if not coveted, at least thought were cool. That was a big shift for me too. But also, I have to say, I don't think you're bad at it. I don't think it's really possible to be bad at spinning. It's all just different stages of learning. And like for me personally, I'm a very slow study. What took me 6 months takes some people 30 minutes to learn how to spin. Like I've seen some people's first skeins, and it's like that was a 6 month scheme for me, and that was their first scheme. Um, so like everybody learns at different rates, but that doesn't make one person better than the other. Like you have things to bring to your own spinning that other people don't, just because you're you and you are the only one with your experience and your thoughts and ideas. And um, I think you shouldn't discount that. Things can be unique and useful and beautiful simply because you made them. It does take my hand. This wasn't a problem before the wrist hair like started going up my hand, but now that it does, is the problem. I just can't imagine shaving a tiny bit of my wrists specifically to prevent this, you know. I hope that's not too corny, but I do mean it. No, it snapped. Oh, that's pain. That is some pain. Okay. Let me sort out what I got. We're definitely going to do a ply ball because if it snaps once, it's going to snap again. So gotta find the other end that snapped. Oh, thank goodness. Okay. It's not too hard to find. That's very good. And then the other thing is I need to get this off my wrist and onto something much smaller. And that'll help a lot too on the nitty nobby. Okay. You do like that they're yours? Yeah, that's what I like most about my stuff too. Such a specific spinner problem. Arm hair. I guess you guys can't see what I'm doing at all. Hang on. Watch, I can tilt it up without showing my face. So I've got the. This is what I will do in situations like this, because it happens a lot, to be honest. So I've got the ply bracelet just sort of on the arm of the nitty noddy, and I'm going to wrap it around the closest handy object, which in this case is a darning mushroom. And this should do just fine. Off topic, but you can't really get over the word nitty noddy. Very pleasant to say and also very unserious. I know, right? I've meant to look into the etymology. Is it etymology or entomology? I think it's etymology. I've been meaning to look into the etymology of nitty noddy for ages because it's like it sounds like such a stupid ass Middle English word that we never got over. But also, like I feel like the word itself describes the sort of cantering movement that you do when you're using a nitty noddy. So I think it's really fitting. It's just also, as you said, very unserious. Very fun to say. I also really like when people, I think it's mostly people who are unaware of what a nitty noddy is rather than people whose first language isn't English. I think it's mostly the former. But when they call it a nitty noddy, like Knitty and then Noddy, because they're like taking a vague guess and they're like, it sounds kind of like nitty. I think that's really funny too. Entomology is the insects one. Yeah, that sounds right. I always get them, like, I know one of them is one and one of them is the other, but then remembering which is which is the hard part. My quick fix, I used to have a quick fix for remembering which was which was that there's an N in entomology because there's nematodes, i.e., worms. But it turns out that if you say that to somebody who cares about nematodes, they get really mad. So I stopped saying that. I guess nematodes aren't bugs, and or the study of nematodes versus bugs are very different and very serious, important distinctions. I don't know, but it cracked me up so much. You were telling that to a friend who answered, but look at it, it's such a nitty naughty. So true. Etymology has more Y's, so that's the language one. I might be able to remember that. Thank you. I do ask a lot of why questions when it comes to language, so that makes sense. You get in those situations all the time. Me too. It's like I think I'm being funny, and I think I am probably being at least somewhat funny, but I'm being funny to the wrong fucking person, and they don't appreciate it. Just incapable of reading the room. Now, I was hoping that we would have time um, to work on that dog hair, but to be honest, I don't think we will. I think it's probably going to be another like 20, 30 minutes of flying, and then I got to go. So we're not done yet, but I think this is probably going to be the bulk of what we do for the rest of the stream, if not all of it, which I hope you don't mind. I am just tired and hungry. And finishing up this yarn is something that's been plaguing me, but the dog hair has not been plaguing me. So, you know. Okay. Hopefully that will make it easier. I'm going to cry so hard if it didn't. But it did. You studied linguistics for a while. You love languages deeply. Also, that means making peace with the fact sometimes all you can find is, well, that's a good question. That's awesome. I love linguistics too. I did not ever go to college or anything, unfortunately, but I took a bunch of language classes and self taught myself several languages, which I have since fully forgotten. But I love them so much. They're so fascinating. Okay. Can I do this without making it weird? We shall see. Stop it. Okay, I think if I hold it all like this and then spit splice, it should be good to go. Yeah. Okay. That looks about right. All right, let's get back to it. This is still not going to be the easiest thing in the world because now I'm working off this. But we'll try. Give it a good old college try, see what happens. Yeah, this ain't too bad. It'd be working a hell of a lot easier if I had something to put the darning mushroom in, which I do not. So we'll just make do. But it does work, so and I think it's less likely to snap. Are you for real, spinning wheel? Maybe I'll just do that. I honestly think my spinning wheel just doesn't like me anymore. It never used to make any of these fucking noises. Oh, hi, Chuck. That was a very undignified dismount. Poor guy. I'm very curious if this will all actually fit on this bobbin. It's very possible it won't. You keep hearing the darning mushroom like a euphemism for damn. I feel like when darning mushrooms were more popular, they probably were used as a euphemism a lot. They're just like, they're such good objects. I could really see that being the case. And it would be very funny if so. The cat has sadly abandoned us. She's gone to sit in the Rose. She's always very woeful this time of evening because she wants me to sit and watch her eat food rather than sit and do other things. It's imperative that I watch her eat dinner, obviously. And then after that, she's like, well, why the fuck aren't we in bed yet? It's insane. And she's not wrong, to be honest. But nonetheless. It is kind of funny being like a fully grown adult being herded to bed every night by my cat. But I guess if she didn't do it, who would? Because I'm not good at getting to bed on time, despite my many alarms and systems to make that so. It's not actually working. You should get one you want to learn how to darn, and you're not good at it with what you have. Darning mushrooms can be fun, but I will say they're not necessarily the easiest tool to use. I found, I'm sure this is preference based, and also depends on the kind of stuff you're mending. But I found what worked really well for me was something where I could close and tighten the fabric so that it didn't move. So embroidery hoops work fairly well for me. And I've also got like one of them, the modern versions are called, I think, seed weaves. I have a really nice Soviet one that is definitely not called a speed weave. But basically, like, it's got a groove in the middle of this disc where you can put like a rubber band or a hair tie and keep your stuff perfectly taut and in place. And keeping it taut and in place is the key to neat darning. So that might be a little bit more helpful. The mushroom kind of just helps you hold stuff, but it doesn't help you keep it taut necessarily or keep it in place necessarily. It can, but that's not really what it's for. But they also look really cool, so for that reason alone, it is kind of worth it. You're terrible at it too. It's got a steeper learning curve than a lot of things, that's for sure. And I feel like I often sort of just go backwards for some unfortunate reason. Like I'll be pretty decent at darning for a while, and then 6 months later I pick it up again, and I'm like, what the fuck happened? It sucks. And I never really know what did happen. We're getting to the end of that bat singles, which is exciting, because that means it's just a quick 3-ply for the rest of it. I'm so excited to see how this looks, and most especially to see how much yardage I have. Really very curious. It's been a while since I spun so much of a fine yarn in a row like this, because I haven't used my wheel that much, so except for on stream pretty much. You'll check it out there. I think, yeah, there's a lot of darning tools out there, you know. So what are you doing back there other than being highly suspect? Come on. Uh-oh. I think I've been under twisting. No, we're okay. We do still have a pretty sizable amount on that one bobbin that's just got the solid color stuff. So I think I'm just going to change by that if I get done with all this stuff and just add it on there. I guess I could spin it separately so that I can more easily use it as a cast on. I don't know. That might be a better move, honestly. It's just that I like having it incorporated. Just makes me feel happy. But like, it's not necessarily as good of an idea. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I can even fit it. If I can't fit it, then there's no point. Speaking of, this needs to move to the last hook that has any room. Okay, I think we'll have room. This is the very last bit of that bat single. I'm just gonna add on. And these together. It's like piecemeal every time. It's kind of funny. I really wonder if this is how it would have been done historically too, where it's just like, you know, get the yarn done, who cares about anything else? Or maybe they had higher standards than I do. I don't know. Curious. You always want to achieve thousands of yards, which on a spindle, you're not sure you can. Yeah, I feel the same way. That's the main reason that I upgraded from a spindle to a spinning wheel, is because I knew I could spin much larger amounts on a spinning wheel. That said, if you have like a large number of hand spindles and you spin fine amounts on them, then you can end up with thousands of yards just by filling multiple spindles with like thread. But it sure does take a while. But I've done it a couple times. It's very rewarding. I've seen some other people do it a couple times. All right, we've now reached the end of the stuff that I turned into a plying bracelet. So I guess now I just have to figure out how to quickly make this into a 3-ply, like a chain ply, which I think I can do pretty easily just by fudging a little bit. Doing a tiny bit of felting. Okay. Nice. Now this is pretty nice. I wasn't sure. I feel like every time I chain ply a yarn, it feels a little bit different. Like it drags a little differently and plies a little differently. This one's pretty nice. I'm liking it. Considering it, but don't you get different thickness from different spindles? I mean, yeah, but that's why you get like a whole bunch of spindles that all do similar thicknesses. But also, I mean, you can certainly do yarns where, say, 1-ply is sort of like a thread weight and 1-ply is a lace weight. When you have extreme differences like that, they're called GIMP yarns. And what you'll get is a much thicker yarn if you knit it up, because the ridges sort of slot into each other. It's difficult to explain, but you should be able to find some info online about it. But yeah, like when it comes to my supported spindles, I've sometimes done projects using like 4 or 5 supported spindles, and each one leads to a slightly different weight yarn, but it all kind of averages out, and it leads to a cohesive yarn nonetheless. So, and consider, this is how people made huge amounts of yarn, enough for blankets, enough for like elaborate robes and dresses and skirts and stuff like that. That is exactly how people were making large quantities of yarn for probably hundreds of thousands of years. So it's certainly doable if you choose to. It doesn't mean it's fast, but it's doable. And it is pretty enjoyable. That's just my 2 cents. Probably refocus this a little more. We are almost done, and I'm very excited about it. Heard something about how boat sails spun by spindles that stuck with you. Yeah, I know, right? Like hundreds of thousands of yards would go into the sails for one boat. I just can't even fathom how much fiber that is. It probably doesn't help that I've never seen a sailboat, so I don't even know how big they are, but like, still, nonetheless, must have been crazy. Sounds like an all hands on deck all the time type of situation, which would be stressful, I feel like. Like just in terms of getting it done in time for the next ship to launch, We're in the home stretch now. Very pleased. I think I will, well, I don't know. I can skin it up on camera or I can skin it up a little bit later. I don't know how interesting that could possibly be to watch, especially because I'm not going to count it on camera because that's going to take me so long. That said, when I post the pictures, I will not post the yardage, and I'm very curious what your guess is, Zertra. Given how accurate you've been the other times, I really, really want to know. So I think I might, like once I finish this, I think I might call it, and later, once it's all washed and blocked, put some pictures online and yeah, ask if you have a yardage estimate or a meterage estimate, either way. And that is the last little bit. That's crazy. It felt like it both felt like that took forever to finish, and also like, whoa, where'd the time go? I'm already done. Often a spinning mood, to be honest. That's it. Scared myself for a second. Ooh, all right. You want to see it on the nitty naughty? All right, fair enough. I'll do it. Joints start to hurt, but you still have a bunch of wool to spin. That's a really terrible feeling. I'm sorry. Sometimes when that happens to me, also with some other aspect of fiber that I need to do later, like if I have to pre-draft a section, maybe I'll pre-draft a bit, or that sort of thing. I don't know if that might help at all. But also sometimes the joints start hurting and it's all the fucking joints, not just what are you even supposed to do about that. All right, let me see what I can do to keep this in camera. Okay. This might take a while. It's a very full bobbin. So this one's definitely going to be bigger than the other one, potentially by quite a lot, actually. I'm really liking, like, it's a lot more consistent than I thought it would be. The other skein too, especially once I washed it, was actually pretty damn consistent. So I'm really quite thankful for that. Wouldn't be surprised if we started weaving and stuff to occupy ourselves in between spinning. That's literally that's what I do, yeah. Like, I'll take spinning breaks because I'm forced to, and then, new crochet project, and then I need a break from the crochet project, so I'm like, I'll knit some socks, and I need a break from the socks. And it just goes on and on and on. But I finished most things, so I'm okay with how that pans out, even though it is kind of ridiculous. It looks so satisfying. It is. It's a satisfying set of movements, for sure. It's not satisfying when you're still learning it. It's just kind of frustrating then. But once you get it, it is quite satisfying. Although it does hurt my shoulder. But there's nothing to be done about that, other than buying like a Lazy Kate or something, or I don't even think it's called a Lazy Kate. I don't know. It's like those big things, those big cylinder type things that unfold kind of like an umbrella, and you spin them and you wrap yarn around them. But I don't even know if that would be much easier. I'd need to try one extensively to feel like it was worth buying. And even so, I simply don't have room in my apartment for more fiber things, really. So what's the point? It's kind of funny how tiny this niddy noddy looks on camera. It's a 2 yard / approximately 2 meter niddy noddy. It's not small. I guess my hands are kind of in the way and also somewhat big, so that's probably part of it. But yeah, like it's bigger than it looks for sure. And we're like a third of the way through, by the way, despite all the stuff we have on here. Oh, hang on. I need to take my edible. I forgot about that. 1 second. Chuck was looking at me like, where's my edible? When will you give me drugs? As if I don't give her catnip every day. Swift, yeah, Yarn Swift. That's what it's called. Thank you. Yeah, the last time I checked the prices of those, they were like $150. And my nitty noddy was free. It came with my wheel ticket. And even so, they're usually not more than like $20. So I don't know if I could justify that sort of cost. It seems a little, like maybe if you're a yarn dyer or something, or you produce just massive amounts of yarn, or you just have money to burn, that makes sense then. But none of those are true for me. There have been times when I've produced massive amounts of yarn, but not in a while. Yeah, it's a lot. I do like how much the bobbin clatters as it gets emptier. It's a nice, like, non-tactile way to let me know how far along I am. I don't know if it makes it really hard to hear me. Apologies if so. We did it. Okay, let me just tie this up real quick. Trapped. Good. Not leave myself quite enough room on that one. Let's try that again. Okay, so this here. Yeah, I know. This is a fuller bobbin for something as fine as what I spun that I'm used to. It's very exciting. So here's what we got. For one thing, here's the stuff that we spun up last time. Not a whole huge ton, but I think it's really nice. And then here is what we just did, and it should puff up. I think it's going to go from, it's currently lace weight, and I think it's going to go to about a DK because it puffed up a ton. So I'm going to wash this, let it dry, count it, and put it on Tumblr. And if you want to guess, I will let you guess because I want to know what your guess is. No pressure though if you don't feel like guessing. No problem. But yeah, I think I'm going to call the stream there. We got about 2 hours in, so it's actually better than I thought. But yeah, I have dinner to eat. And a cat who's very annoyed at me. It's so long too. And fairly balanced. It's only got like 1 or 2 twists, really. So yeah, I'm gonna head out. Thank you so much for hanging out and for commenting, Zertra, and thank you to everyone else who hung out as well. We always really appreciate it. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, I actually can't. I can tell which one I washed because one of them is a hell of a lot shorter. These are being hung off my hand at the same level, and look at this. That's crazy. That's that's crazy. I don't want to recount it though. I'm too lazy for that. That's so much effort. But yeah. You're more stumped than you were 35, 40. I think it might be a little more than 40 yards. We'll have to see. Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed my streams. That means a lot. All right, I'm going to go to bed. Hope you all have a good night. And thanks for watching. Goodbye.